Welcome to this 24th meeting of the Milton Planning Board for fiscal year 2013. I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman. With me are
Ed Duffy, member.
Bernie Lynch, member.
Emily Ennis, member.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Jean Peterson, clerk.
There you go. Today's date.
Today is April 18th, 2013. And I think that in light of what happened last Monday, we should observe a moment of silence for the victims of that terrible event. May it never happen again. Now, we're going to do some minutes. We won't do the executive session minutes, but it seems to me that we can do March 14th, which seems to be in order.
I was absent, so I'll have to abstain from those.
All right. We don't want to get too far behind on our minutes. So, shall we approve them?
Move we accept the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Bernie?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, the 21st, let's do the 21st of March. Once again, these are very short minutes.
I will move the minutes of March 21st.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So those have been approved. Now, on
Not the March 28th? We have one
March
more time.
28th, I have a few suggested changes for Jean. So we can postpone those. And we'll postpone the executive session meetings until Mr. Kelly gets back. Our next meeting is going to be next week in the Milton High School auditorium.
Can't be there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. It's going to be a public forum for the master plan visioning. The meeting will begin at 7 o'clock, and
High school auditorium.
we hope that we've got a good group of people attending. Then we'll be meeting as needed before sessions of the town meeting, but we are probably not going to meet before every session. The next item is citizen speak, where citizens have the opportunity to address the board on matters of relevance to the board. And so, would anyone like to be heard at citizen speak this evening? Yes. Come and join us right in that.
Sorry. My name's Denny Swenson. I met some of you before. I live on Hemingway Drive. Half of my house is in Canton, half of it's in Milton. I am here tonight. I wanted to submit a request to register Hemingway Drive and Avenue A as scenic ways. I made a binder for each of you. I hope I have enough.
Wow, great.
Get past this. And Bill, I made you a thumb drive. So if anybody wants any copies that way, I think I might be one short. So if it's okay, I'll leave this one behind, and maybe Bill can
Yep.
help me by making another copy. Simultaneous to this, we've also applied to the state to register Hemingway Drive and Avenue A as historic sites. I realize I'm not on the agenda tonight, so I'll try to buzz through this in my 3 minutes. Hemingway Drive is of historic significance. Hemingway is in both Canton and Milton. You may have heard of Blue Hill Farm. That is what Augustus and Harriet Hemingway called their first home that he had built at the age of 22. So he was a representative for the town of Milton and Canton. Some of you may know that Harriet Hemingway was the co-founder with Minnaby Hall of the Audubon Society. Many of the properties, if you look at the historic homes, they haven't changed since these were all the initial homes of the farm, the Blue Hills Farm. So if I'm looking at the second green tab, Historic Homes Hemingway Drive. And so these are the homes that made up the farm. They have since, each of these, like that yellow horse barn is now someone's home. The card house is someone's home, and the firehouse. And then the roadway itself has remained virtually the same as well.
This is the plan.
Yes, and you can see,
Where's Green Street, right here? That's really Milton.
let's see, a
Yeah.
little turned
Here's
around. Yeah,
Green
that's
Street.
Green
That is
Street,
Green
yes,
Street.
and that comes down. And you can see this was Shirtcliff. This is his later spelling. So Frederick Law Olmsted's protege was Arthur Ashel Shirtcliff, a landscape architect designer. I have his bio in here. So you can see these are all Shirtcliff's plans of the drive through the years. And so tab 4 is Shirtcliff's bio. He grew up in Boston, has an incredible resume, and I hope you can come one day for a site walk and see some of the bends and curves of the roadway, because he had a way of bending right where there was an open meadow or pond or brook or incredible view. And it brings back a lot of American nostalgia. Abutting Hemingway Drive, well, parallel to Hemingway Drive is Avenue A, which is all in Milton except for the Langevin's house. Some of their property is in Canton. A lot of that neighborhood was initially owned by the Davenport Estate, which is also known as the Wakefield Estate. Goes back 300 years. 3 of the houses in that neighborhood are the Minot House, the Bishop House, and the Swan House, and they are all inventoried with Mass Historic Commission. Hemingway's owned a lot next to Harriet's brother, William Lawrence Bishop. She used to walk through Hemingway Drive through a path onto Avenue A to visit her brother, according to the relatives that still live nearby. Richard Olney served in the Grover Cleveland administration as Attorney General and Secretary of State. Included some of the deeds that he bought some of the Davenport homes, and he bought the home from his sister Agnes Olney Minot. So he bought the Minot home, and he subdivided it, brought in Arthur Ashel Shirtcliff, and designed Avenue A. So,
Kenny, where's Avenue A?
okay, Avenue A is,
A different
it's on
plan?
a
Just-
different map.
okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. I tried to separate the two, so, because it's kind of, gets a little confusing, but it should say Avenue A, Shirtcliff plan. Let's see. there it is. So if you open this one. So this is where the Millingtons live. That's the Swan House.
Oh, sure, well, okay.
Yep, New Brush Hill Road. So Fuller Village is over there. This is Avenue A. Hemingway Drive is down here. So this is the Bishop House where William Lawrence Bishop owned this house, and Hemingway's owned this lot.
So one plan for the whole area in here?
I did the plans for Avenue A and Hemingway Drive. I could bring in another map that would be broader if you'd like to see both.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I included the registration document that I submitted to the state as well, because it's pretty thorough questions, so I thought that might be helpful in your assessment of the neighborhood as well.
This is very comprehensive.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Oh,
No, it's,
good. They say it
it's
should
really
take 100
interesting.
hours, and boy, did it.
To read it, too.
Yeah, it might take a few hours to read it. But it was wonderful. There were, a lot of the sourcing was New York Times obituaries, so.
Have you done this
they found-
before? Anything like this before?
I used to do documentaries, so it reminded me of that. So I love history, and it was kind of neat to see it so close to home.
And have you given it to the Historic Commission? Okay.
Yes, I mailed it. I mailed the same binder to the Historic Commission.
Excellent.
To the Mass Historic Commission.
But the Milton
but I
Historic
should as well.
Commission, yeah,
That's a good
definitely.
idea. I've been talking with them, but I should definitely,
To both Milton and Canton.
yes. And I'm working with the, I'm going before the Canton Planning Board in 2 weeks.
I guess we have a question, since these are private ways,
Mm-hmm.
as to whether or not we have jurisdiction to declare them scenic roads.
I could
I mean,
get,
they're certainly scenic,
yeah.
and
But
they're,
as far as an official designation.
but as far as making them scenic ways subject to the law, that is a question.
I could, my neighbors are in favor of Hemingway Drive, and I could work with the neighborhood on Avenue A to assess their interest. I think there is some interest.
Well, let's assume that all the abutters to Hemingway Drive are in favor. Because if someone were opposed, that would undoubtedly be more complicating. So that's how we would look at it. We'd assume unanimity of support for a declaration and see whether or not with that we could operate.
Okay. All right, I'll work on that.
I thought part of Dudley Lane was a private way. I think it's a scenic.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, that's a precedent. And we'll, we should look into that.
Bill's doing it now.
You're looking at the scenic
I'm
road,
looking up
yeah.
Dudley.
Bill's got everything in that book.
Dudley Lane is a private way for 2,400 feet.
But it's all a scenic road.
Don't know that yet.
He's looking at this other
Getting
section.
there. One step at a time.
Assuming we do have jurisdiction, is the procedure simply, because we haven't actually done one of these since I've been on the board, is the procedure simply to have a public hearing and then declare it? If
think-
we have full support and we agree, then we would be able to declare it, or?
I think
other
that's
steps?
I think that seems like the procedure, although it's possible that they could, it seems reasonable.
A reasonable
to assume
procedure?
that that's
Okay.
the procedure.
Dudley Lane is not a scenic road. Dollar Lane,
And is Dollar,
Dudley.
what?
Dollar Lane, not Dudley.
but Dollar is public.
It is.
Okay.
All right, so in any event, these roads are certainly scenic, and and this is a wonderful presentation, thank you so much. And whatever happens, it's worth having been done.
So we need to figure out our jurisdiction, and then would need to have you come back in and make a formal presentation as part of a public hearing, and then go from there, assuming we can do it. Yeah.
No.
And if it doesn't fit the bill of a qualified, we could always ask the legislature to make it a special act out, couldn't we?
We
Home
could-
Rule Act.
I think,
That's special act.
I think that, yeah, we're on board. So,
After all this work, we have to pass it somehow.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, my contact information is on the front page, the table of contents. And I think Bill and I are in touch with each other occasionally, so he might know.
Okay,
So
great.
please,
Thank you.
if I can come back at any point. Oh, I found another one. Here you go,
Collector's
after all
item.
that, it was right there.
You want to give it to Mike?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Nice, this is a nice presentation.
Bill should be doing more of this kind of stuff.
Ooh,
Well, I mean, this is the sort of stuff that the library should have,
Exactly.
it should be,
put a copy on file there.
and I think that's,
In the Milton room. Do we still have a Milton room at the library?
Yep.
Yes,
We do?
absolutely.
Good,
Yeah.
okay.
Can't use it, though.
Special appointment.
Can't use it.
all right, well, who else would like to be heard at Citizens Speak? All right, I see no one. Yes,
I saw,
come and join us at the table, and
well, I think I'll raise my voice. I just had a quick question. I saw in the recent edition of the Milton Times that there was going to be some discussion as to possible dispensaries in the town of Milton. And I was wondering if we could dedicate some time to the possible negative consequences and benefits of.
yes. And in fact, the medical marijuana hearing is scheduled at 6:45, and it is now 6:48.
I think we should move.
So
into
I
that,
think
yeah.
that we are going to go directly into the hearing that was advertised in the newspaper, and we will take comments both pro and con. The proposal is, and this is it not, Bill? This is the latest?
And on the back.
On the back.
The proposal is for a temporary moratorium on medical marijuana treatment centers. And the crux of it is as follows. It says, for the reasons set forth above, and notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning bylaws to the contrary, the town hereby adopts a temporary moratorium on the use of land or structures for a medical marijuana treatment center. The moratorium shall be in effect through June 30th, 2014. During the moratorium period, the town shall undertake a planning process to address the potential impacts of medical marijuana and of medical marijuana treatment facilities in the town. Shall consider the Department of Public Health regulations regarding medical marijuana treatment centers and related uses, and shall consider adopting new zoning bylaws to address the impact and operation of medical marijuana treatment centers and related uses. And this article is brought by the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, and the Planning Board. And Mike Blanchard who is the Public Health Director. We would like to start the hearing off by hearing from him.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm here tonight representing the Board of Health. We, over the last few months, have had numerous discussions about this topic and the impact it will have for the town. As a co-sponsor to this article, I think it can be assumed, but I'd like to state for the record that the Board of Health does support temporary moratorium. We feel there are a lot of issues that need to be looked at, both in terms of zoning, in terms of Board of Health regulation and oversight, and the speed at which these regulations by DPH are being adopted and implemented do not give us sufficient time to really study the issue, the impact it'll have on Milton, and how we can best handle that. I'd certainly be here to answer any questions, and if any of the citizens or residents have questions, I certainly answer them, but again, the Board of Health does support this moratorium.
All right. We have a question, right?
I have a statement.
A statement. All
Yeah.
right.
What you see before you is the article for town meeting. The language from that motion comes directly from, this one actually comes from town council. I wrote one, it went back to John. John changed a little bit for the wording has already been approved in other communities by the Attorney General's office. All we've done is take what's already been approved and brought it forward here. So we expect that this is just fine for the Attorney General.
All right.
I have a statement
Yes.
if you want. So as you know, I went to the Citizens Planner Training Collaborative this spring, and one of the things, as did Eddie, but one of the sessions I went to was the medical marijuana. I think we all know, but just to reiterate, that it is illegal to ban medical marijuana in your town. The AG has already ruled on that. What they were suggesting at the session was a temporary moratorium. You cannot have an indefinite moratorium. You must have a date certain, which we have in here. The recommended date of June 30th, 2014 allows us to go through a full town meeting cycle. The purpose is to study where in Milton it would be allowed, the regulations that we would put in place. As Mike said, it's not just zoning regulations, it's also general bylaws, and it's Board of Health regulations that we have to look at. They went through, at the time that I went, the draft regulations were not yet out. They are out now, and Bill's given us a copy, I believe, in our packets. They're fairly substantial, so it's going to take us a while just to read them. But at the time, they were talking about the various different issues that could come up, and one of the issues that we would have to consider is whether you could split the uses. Again, that may have been changed in the draft regulations, and have certain uses in certain spots and other uses in others. There's a lot of discussion about how these regulations would work, and it seemed appropriate from the people giving the presentation that a year's moratorium would allow most towns to be able to work through those regulations and possibilities.
What I gave you was a page-and-a-half cheat sheet of the issues for the draft medical marijuana regulations. It's 73 pages to get the draft regulations. I have gave you a page-and-a-half that came from Department of Public Health.
Do you want to hit the highlights?
Sure. Medical marijuana treatment centers. Department of Public Health requires each nonprofit medical marijuana treatment center organization to operate their own cultivation and dispensing facilities. This allows for uniform seed.
Cultivating?
Pardon me?
Cultivating too?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
This allows for uniform seed-to-sale control and maximized security. No wholesale distribution of marijuana products would be allowed. Hardship cultivation. Department of Public Health intends to minimize home cultivation by optimizing access through a variety of approaches, including mandating the industry provides and finances discounted rates for low-income residents at all medical marijuana treatment facilities. 2, allow secure home delivery where necessary. And 3, encourage personal caregivers to pick up product in lieu of cultivation. Personal caregivers must be at least 21 years of age. Department of Public Health recommends that, except in the case of an employee of a hospice, nursing home, or medical facility, providing care to a qualifying patient or caregiver may only serve one patient. Qualifying patient may have up to 2 caregivers. Debilitating medical condition. Department of Public Health does not further define which medical conditions qualify patients for medicinal use of marijuana, instead leaving that important decision to physicians and their patients. Department of Public Health does, however, define the word debilitating, clarifying that medical marijuana is intended for use in patients with serious conditions. Defining a 60-day supply. Department of Public Health recommends allowing up to 10 ounces for personal 60-day supply after taking into account the amounts permitted in other states that have legalized medical marijuana. Physicians would have the authority to increase the amount of a 60-day supply in limited circumstances. Defining a bona fide physician-patient relationship means a relationship between a physician acting in the usual course of his or her professional practice and a patient in which the physician has conducted a clinical visit, completed and documented a full assessment of the patient's medical history and current medical condition, has explained the potential benefits and risks of marijuana use, and has a role in the ongoing care and treatment of the patient. Limiting youth access. Department of Public Health proposes a highly restrictive model for access to those less than 18 years of age, requiring guardian approval and certification by 2 physicians, one of whom must be a pediatrician or pediatric specialist. Only those with life-limiting illness likely to result in death within 6 months would be certified. Laboratory testing. Department of Public Health recommends requiring a quality assurance and periodic testing plan that tests for contaminants such as pests, mold, mildew, heavy metals, and pesticides. Municipal oversight. Department of Public Health has responsibility for medical marijuana program throughout the state, including registration of individuals in medical marijuana treatment centers, inspection of medical marijuana treatment centers, and enforcement. Department of Public Health has developed an inclusive framework for engaging municipal government. Department of Public Health does not preclude municipalities from assessing fees or passing certain local regulations, including zoning or citing. Advertising. Recognizing the concerns of the substance abuse prevention community and municipalities, while also taking into account the need for qualifying patients to have access to information about medical marijuana treatment facilities, Department of Public Health has limited certain advertising materials, including, for example, prohibiting ads that depict or encourage the recreational use of marijuana or portray youth or show smoking or smokable products.
Right.
That's it.
They're accepting comments on these draft regs.
That's what?
Yes.
And it goes on to say they're
Yes.
accepting comments on the regulations.
The public comment period closes on April 20th, just in case anybody wishes to make these comments.
Well, since you went to the seminar, you should read these draft regulations and
All
come
70
back to us.
pages. Yes,
with,
I intended to,
But of course, April 20th is
Stay up late and early tonight.
2 days away.
2 days away, so you're going to have to
move quickly.
move quickly.
Speed read.
Does the Department of Public Health feel any obligation to weigh in on these regulations?
Well, just in terms of, we're also in the process of reviewing, we're not submitting comments as an individual Board of Health, but our public health associations are collecting comments and submitting those. So there will be some feedback from local public health on how to, our thoughts on maybe editing and highlighting some issues here within the regulations.
Well, that's an aggressive comment period that they've set up. All right. Thank you. And you're going to be available if the questions arise. Who would like to be heard on this, the moratorium? What the planning board is doing is determining whether or not it's going to recommend to support the moratorium. So I suppose that it would be nice to hear a good reason why we shouldn't support the moratorium, because there seem to be a lot of good reasons why we should.
But I think any comments?
But any comments are more than welcome. Do you want to weigh in?
My name is Jessie Lane.
Please come up so you were picked up by the mics.
Hi.
That's right. I should have announced that if you turn around, you can see that we're being televised and recorded.
I'm okay with that. My name is Jessie Lane. I grew up in the town of Milton. I vote in Milton. I would like to encourage everyone to see this as a non-narcotic option for pain. We live in a part of the country where, unfortunately, drug addiction is rampant to prescription drugs. I lost my best friend in that manner due to an overdose that was precipitated by prescription drug use. I would just like this matter to be considered seriously. I know a lot of people that feel that whatever their individual condition, they would rather not carry pills on them. They would rather not have pills around children. They would rather not risk dropping pills. I'm saying if you are in that group where it does work for you, I feel strongly in favor of anyone who wants to not be involved with that sort of drug use, just because it is very dangerous and they are drugs of abuse. That's all I have to say. Sir.
What's your mother's first name? Betsy?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I
I thought you were going to ask me about my father.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Rene Ruiz. I moved to Milton last summer.
Spell your name for us, sir, please.
First name is spelled R-E-N-E, last name R-U-I-Z, as in zebra.
Thank you.
I don't have an opinion one way or the other on the moratorium. I wouldn't be a medical marijuana user, so it's not going to affect me personally in any way. Since the board asked for arguments against, for procedural purposes, I'll make one for you. If we pass a moratorium in the town of Milton, the risk to that is that there might be some unmet need. So there might be a medical cannabis user out there who, is unable to obtain the medicine that they need in lieu of OxyContin or whatever it is that they need their medical cannabis for. That they'll have to wait that much longer in order to get it. In a practical sense, I'm not sure how much of a difference it would make, because what we're talking about here is a moratorium on setting zoning regulations for businesses. And as far as I know, and please, if anyone knows differently, correct me if I'm wrong, there may not be any businesses out there who are looking to set up a medical marijuana treatment center in the town of Milton. In which case, it doesn't really matter whether or not we pass a moratorium or what our zoning regulations are, because they may seek to set up shop elsewhere. In terms of the draft regulations from DPH, they're fairly tight. I've studied. I'm an activist in my personal life for the reform of marijuana laws, and I've studied marijuana reform generally over the past several years, and have been involved with numerous campaigns, including the legalization campaign in Colorado. I was a donor to the Question 3 campaign here in Massachusetts, and I've personally visited, although again I want to emphasize for the record, I am not a medical marijuana user. I have visited dispensaries in California that are run by activists or friends of friends, and I've seen how some of the more well-regulated, well-run ones run their businesses. And I just want to emphasize for the board that the regulations we have in Massachusetts that are proposed by DPH, at least in draft form, are some of the tightest in the country. And I don't know to what extent there are concerns about the experiences in other states, but we're not at risk with a regulatory regime like what's been proposed of some of the issues that may have arisen in other states like California and Colorado. California, is still struggling. They have no statewide regulatory regime because when their original medical marijuana, law was passed, it was a paragraph long. Quite literally, the draft regulations that DPH has proposed take, many more minutes to read than the original Proposition 215. Finally, if it pleases the board, I have a report here from Americans for Safe Access. It is a medical marijuana advocacy group in California. I don't know if you've seen it. They address some of the more common criticisms about medical cannabis with some quotes from officials in cities in California and Colorado, specifically related to crime and other things that really haven't. A lot of medical marijuana detractors suggested that, well, treatment centers will attract crime, there'll be other negative issues, and in fact that really hasn't been the case on any kind of a systematic basis. Although of course every dispensary is unique. So that's all I have to say, just a general overview.
A question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given all the medications that are out there on the market, is there a medical need for medical marijuana that is not met by all those other medicines that are available?
Well, that's an excellent question, and medical marijuana is a complex issue. You have so the short answer to your question is yes, there is. Because there are cases of people with serious diseases who are prescribed huge doses of OxyContin. Marijuana not being still being Schedule I federally, it means that doctors can't actually prescribe it. The way that it works in practice is a doctor makes a recommendation for a patient to use medical pot, but they don't actually write a prescription. It's not actually regulated by the FDA. We've been trying for many years actually to get the FDA to let us do studies, but the DEA won't give any of us a license. There's a professor at UMass Amherst, Dr. Lyle Craker, who has been stymied by bureaucrats at the DEA for many years. He just wants a Schedule I license to buy pot, to do legitimate scientific research on it. He's not some hippie stoner. He's a serious researcher, but they still won't give it to him. So the short answer is yes. Perhaps the underlying question you were getting at is, well, what of someone who needs, medical marijuana for back pain or menstrual cramps or something like that? Can't they just go to the drugstore and get some Midol or something? And in terms of that person, I don't know that I have a good, I'm not a doctor. To some extent, we may be dealing in some cases with people who might be marijuana users anyway, but whose marijuana use actually does have a legitimate benefit to some specific medical problem that they have, like maybe an old back injury or something like that. So there's really, there's somewhat of a difference there in your medical marijuana patient community. You're going to have the people who have cancer and AIDS, serious life-threatening diseases that Angel Rach is a famous one because she was party to a case that made it to the Supreme Court a few years ago. She has a lot of tumors and is very sick and uses a lot of marijuana to ease her pain. I have no doubt that in her case she needs it, and existing drugs aren't adequate. The stoner with back pain, perhaps not. But I don't think that individual really presents any legitimate threat to social order or anything like that. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Another question.
Actually, just a couple of comments on some of the issues that you raised. On public access or patient access during the moratorium, the Department of Health has actually made some provisions for that. So there's a fact sheet on their website. It was last updated, I think, right as the regulations were coming out, and it discusses a procedure for people who need to have access under the new law, because of course the law went into effect in January, and how that would happen. As far as the zoning, one of the things that was brought up at the conference that I went to was that, first of all, as I said earlier, it's illegal to prohibit it, but the way some town zoning regulations are written, it may inadvertently prohibit it. For example, some towns will write their zoning regulations to say only these uses are allowed in this district, and if these uses aren't listed, then it's prohibited. And so you, as a town, may be inadvertently prohibiting something, and somebody can challenge your zoning laws under that. And so that's one of the reasons for the moratorium, is to allow towns to go through and make sure they're not inadvertently prohibiting it without being legally challenged on that. And that's why there's also a deadline. So the towns can't say, yeah, we're still studying it. That brings me to the third point, which is after town meeting, there will need to be a public planning process. The planning board will have to work with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health to create this public planning process to look at what the regulations would be and where things would be allowed. So it's not just you pass a moratorium at town meeting and suddenly remember it, a year later. There's going to have to be a process, probably taking about a year, to figure this out. So people should know that, and know that this discussion and the discussion at town meeting are not going to be the only two discussions on this. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to speak my mind on this issue. I know it's a very complicated issue, but I would just like to stress the importance of...
What's your name, sir?
My name is Mark, and I'd like to...
What's your last name, sir?
Tully.
U-L-L-Y?
Yes.
Thanks.
And I'd like to mention that one of the most important things to look at in this issue is whether it will ease the suffering of patients. I think there is a great possibility that that cannabis can be abused, and rather than overstate the negative, I'd like to ask the board to take a serious look into the potential benefits of responsible use. For example, that there have been a lot of innovations in responsible cannabis therapy to certain nausea and cancer patients. There's been great innovations, I believe, starting in Europe with vaporizers and edible forms of cannabis that have been much safer than the smokable form. Obviously, putting fire into lungs is going to have some negative consequences. But I just like to really, let's not let the potential negative consequences of increased cannabis use in the town of Milton overshadow the ease of suffering it can provide for people that are very sick and have tried other methods that have not relieved their symptoms, as effectively as, possible responsible uses of cannabis therapy can produce.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no one, shall we close this hearing?
I think I will move to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? The hearing is closed. Now, this is a request for a moratorium so that the town can look into how to deal with the medical marijuana treatment centers and dispensaries in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and or with the town of Milton. And it doesn't require us to take an opinion one way or another on whether or not we think that they should be liberally granted or rigidly limited. What it does is say that it should be studied and considered, and thoughtful decisions should be made at a future time, but not tonight.
Tonight is just merely whether or not we support going forward with the moratorium, and then after town meeting has voted whether or not to hold them, well, whether or not they vote a moratorium or not, we will still have to come up with a planning process for implementing the regulations.
And I anticipate that the Board of Health would be taking a lead role.
You would hope.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think with the three boards jointly sponsoring this, it's going to be a three-board process, but we would have to work very closely with each other.
Would we gather all the evidence? I would think there'd be, maybe the state would be doing all that. And
Well,
Yeah,
we
because-
wouldn't be the
Because-
only town with a moratorium, so I would think that there would be a great deal of information which would be generally available.
well, you get
Yeah,
351 cities and towns, and, you know.
To a certain point, we're going to be able to draw on the work of others' towns. Again, it goes back to the three things: the Board of Health regulations, the general bylaws, and the zoning bylaws. And we're going to have to look at land use issues. And, they brought up a number of things at the conference to discuss relative to land use issues. And one of them, as I said, do you want your dispensaries tucked away in an industrial park? Do you want them on the main street? We have a hospital. Do we want our dispensary at the hospital? But one of the things that they talked about is the fact that, we're always, and the news is dispensary, dispensary, dispensary. You picked up on it earlier. Cultivation is part of it. And the cultivation, and I say you can't ban
We
medical
don't have a long
marijuana,
growing season.
you're not allowed,
You can
you're not
put
allowed
it-
to grow it outside. It can only be grown indoors in a locked facility. And you can't ban any part of so you can't, it's not that you can't ban, you have to have a dispensary, but you can ban everything else. You can't ban any part of it. So you can't ban the cultivation. So we will have to look as a town and see, well, if we're going to permit all of the related uses, because there's cultivation, packaging, dispensary, et cetera, where would we permit these things and how would we allow it? And that's when the three different sets of regulations, zoning, general bylaws, and Board of Health, start working together on that. It looks like the DPH is taking inspectional services on, but with the fact that you've got the possibility, you've got to look at how things are being produced and packaged. There's probably a role for the local Board of Health in that. If you're looking at locked facilities, there may be some sort of enforcement role on that. This is one of the things that we're going to be testing a lot, along with a lot of other towns at the same time. So I think we're going to be able to draw on that, but there's going to be some work that we have to do because we're looking at land use in our own town. And that's where we're going to have the public sessions and the discussion. So we're going to be feeling our way a little bit on this, as is every other town in Massachusetts.
And this is a limited moratorium.
Yes, just to get us through the next
June
annual.
30th, 2014 is
Yeah.
the end of it.
Can I ask how that date was assigned?
It's actually been, that date's actually been common for most of the towns. What happens is most towns in Massachusetts, well, pretty much all towns with town meetings in Massachusetts have their town meetings in the spring. So June 30th takes you to the end of the next fiscal year. Allows you to have a full town meeting cycle. So the idea is town meetings are passing the moratorium this spring. They have to have their regulations in place by the time of next spring's town meeting.
Well, that makes sense, I think. What does the board think? Any comments? Shall we vote whether to recommend to the town meeting that this moratorium be approved? All right. Do we have such a motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's 4-0 to recommend approval of the moratorium, and thank the people who came in to testify. It was useful, and we may want you to come back.
I think so, to join the public process and hear back from all of you on that.
All right. Now, we're going to discuss 17 Canton Avenue.
Ah. Do
Sounds
we have
familiar.
things to sign?
No,
Oh,
but
Give us
we have more than nothing.
okay.
We have more than nothing. Now, this is a office building at 17 Canton Avenue that used to be the DeWolf Real Estate Building, and it was a early 1800s building. I think that's probably right.
Sounds
Uh,
familiar.
And part of the deal was that the facade on Canton Avenue would be replicated in the new building. And they've come in and they said they forgot at the beginning to include a generator, and they forgot to include some air conditioners.
The air conditioners were on the original plan.
No, I don't
It was the
think they were.
canopy. It was the canopy they forgot.
I don't think the air conditioners were on the original plan. If they were, you see, there would be no question. The air conditioners are an addition. Actually, I could show you, but I won't.
I'll go look through my
We'll
files.
go, we'll just, air conditioners. And then there's a canopy, which
Yes.
is proposed for the side of the building near the parking lot so that people waiting for people to pick them up won't get wet. And it seemed reasonable enough, but the design of the canopy was a matter of concern. The generator, we've talked a lot about, and this is I'm going to read you what I'm going to suggest that we put into our decision. This would be site plan approval, and it would say that the site plan approval dated April 28, 2011 is hereby modified as follows. And one would be a 60 HZ. What does that say? How do you say HZ?
megahertz.
I don't think it's, maybe it's just hertz.
I think it's Hertz.
A 60 hertz Kohler generator, model 100REZG, may be installed in the location shown on the attached plan entitled Exhibit A. The generator shall be as described in attachment B, and let me show you what attachment B is. Attachment B are the specifications that Mr. Sheffield gave us for the generator. And as usual, they're not exactly where I wanted them to be.
Do you want to cite the actual model? I mean, what if they
Here is,
change?
this is what they say it's going to be.
Or similar?
Well, no, they say it's going to be model 100.
He said he already bought it.
Yeah, I thought he'd said he'd already ordered it.
Well, I understand that,
No,
but,
that makes it easier to specify it if he's already ordered
Right.
it.
but I mean, this is attachment B, the description of the generator.
Right.
And we're just going to attach this spec sheet to the thing. Shall be as described in attachment B and shall have the sound enclosure as described in attachment C. And there's the sound enclosure in attachment C. There shall be a masonry wall on two sides of the sound enclosure as shown on Exhibit A. And I'm not sure it is actually shown on Exhibit A. You can, it isn't, but you see, here are the air conditioning, and here it is. But there is supposed to be a masonry wall, an L, around the generator, and it should be shown on some plan, but I couldn't find the plan. So it's going to have to be shown
Okay.
where it is. There shall be a masonry wall on two sides of the sound enclosure as shown on Exhibit A, which is the site plan. There shall be landscaping screening the masonry wall as viewed from neighboring residential property. And we don't know exactly what it's going to be yet.
Okay.
So what are we going to say? We're going to say a landscape plan, an auxiliary landscape plan shall be submitted for approval. Aux plan for approval. Okay. Routine testing may occur weekly on a weekday late morning or early afternoon for a period not to exceed 15 minutes. The sound of the generator measured at the lot line with any adjoining residential property shall not exceed 72 decibels. The generator and sound enclosure shall be properly maintained so as to keep its operating noise as low as possible. That's what I said about the generator. What else do we need to say about the generator?
Got the maintenance in, you've got the screening, both the concrete and the landscape. You've got the additional sound enclosure. You've got the requirement for the decibels at the lot line.
How tall is the masonry wall? Is it the same height as the sound enclosure?
It's, I think, one block higher than the,
Slightly taller,
yes.
Yeah.
one block
slightly
higher.
taller. Okay.
Why an L shape, Al? Why not a three or four?
Well, because it was,
If you
They-
make it and you surround it, you're going to hold the sound in, and it's going to amplify. If you put it on two sides, you're pushing it into their parking lot.
Okay.
You're pushing it away from the housing structures and letting it go out to the
Gotcha.
parking lot.
Thank you.
okay. Anything else on the generator? Okay. Air conditioners. There may be 4 Ream 13 SEER condensing units. And we have another spec on these.
Oh, that's
On
going to be
these,
a big folder.
well, this is going to be,
Registered deeds?
this is going to be,
One of these books here.
this is going to,
Fill it right
Yeah.
up.
there shall be 4
Colored
Ream
tabs.
Keep it
13
simple.
Colored tabs and so.
SEER condensing units with the sound enclosure accessory as described in attachment D. And,
We got the sound enclosure accessory.
well, it's not totally described, but it, you know, whatever it is they're going to have.
Right, okay, fine.
Okay. The sound of the air conditioners measured at the lot line with any adjoining residential property shall not exceed 72 decibels. The air conditioners and their sound enclosures shall be properly maintained so as to keep operating noise as low as possible. Landscaping shall screen the air conditioners as viewed from neighboring residential property. And it would be, once again, supplementary landscaping plan.
Yeah. They could do, yes, one landscape plan showing both.
Landscape plan, okay. Now, the next one, we're going to need some work. There may be a canopy as shown, and I don't think it's shown anywhere yet.
It is actually shown. I had a look at the plans. It's difficult to see, but Bill sent, and so it is actually on the plans, Bill sent over a rendering of what the canopy would look like. I think the only thing we'd have to check is to double check that that rendering matched what was actually on the
Right.
plans. I believe
So
it
that will
does.
be attachment E, as shown on attachment E. What do we say about it? Is it a
I-
aluminum one?
It is aluminum. It was covered in cloth. It's not the barrel. It's more of a shed-like, as I recall.
You've
about
got
2
this
weeks
plan,
ago.
Bill, somewhere?
Getting it.
Yeah.
I'm getting it.
You're-
Do we
you're
specify
getting it
the
on
color?
your computer.
I don't
Beginning
think,
to that point?
they put a color on it. I don't think that we need to
White.
specify the color. No, actually, they did it in red. It looked quite striking.
I remember seeing it.
Yeah, so, and it's fine. You know, as awnings go, it's a fine awning. It's better than the original 2 shapes that they put.
All right, there may be a canopy. Does it say on this what color it's going to be?
It showed as a red canopy. I'm assuming that's the color they're going
It's
to have.
going to be a red canopy?
It's going to be a red Camry.
To go along with the red air conditioners?
Don't believe the air conditioners were red. Bernie.
Color,
Let's do it, let's go for broke.
color shall be as,
As specified. And then we
shall,
can attach the specifications.
do they have specs for the canopy?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they did. I mean, it's on the plans. We have the rendering. I don't remember if the specs were attached to the rendering, but we have specs for it.
Well, it would be
If
nice.
as I said, my only question is, are the specs that they showed the same? For example, on this plan, which is an earlier one, this does not match the canopy that they're showing. I believe the
So they've
specs that we received the last time they were with us do
All
match
right.
the canopy.
Uh,
There you go.
Specifications shall be as set out on attachment F?
Yes, I think that's reasonable. What? It's a canopy.
Yeah, it's
I would have preferred that they built it out and, you know.
all the effort, I think it just doesn't
Weak,
move
I
me.
agree, but
weak.
they wanted a canopy rather than they should have built, I mean, you know, they should have built it out from the start as a proper
I agree.
covering.
Right.
But
Driving
it's-
range.
But if they're
it doesn't
doing a
hold back
canopy,
Driving range.
it's a
Prevailing
fine
winds.
canopy.
You know, it's sort of,
I have actually been looking at canopies as I drive around
it
town.
is sort of like you see on nursing homes on all the windows, so it doesn't get too light inside. It's
Ouch.
Cheapens the project.
Yeah. It is not,
it's not a great canopy.
No, it is
No,
not.
Exactly.
And I take that all back.
Back to the drawing board, maybe?
And I say that
Well, you said it was designed to keep the people out of the weather.
well, that's
they
what,
said it was designed
that's what
to
I
keep it
thought
out of
until
the-
That's not gonna keep them
until
out
I
of the
saw
weather.
it.
Yeah.
I built a building down the street there, and we had a nice canopy. I don't know if it's still up there, but 25 High Street.
This canopy
Beautiful.
doesn't look like it's
Oh, it looks,
very functional.
It's not so much the function that worries me, it's the fact that it doesn't look very sturdy.
All right, shall we say it shall be sturdy?
I don't think that we can define sturdy in a site plan, but.
Well, people jumping on it.
No.
No.
wow.
Okay, do you have any specifications of this thing, Bill?
Well, we got the
Other
picture.
than what's on the
Well, you have a
plans.
picture, I
There-
understand that, but it could be
In the
almost
last
anything.
set of plans, they gave us specs. The question is whether those specs match the canopy they've now given us.
Well, I
Here's the
mean, I suppose that we can
Gene, what do you
incorporate
think?
them.
Yeah.
I'll read it to you. Here is the proposed awning for Canton Ave. The color is to be determined. I
So
think
it's
black
not
is
red.
possibly the best.
Black?
The
Black
maroon
and
is
white.
subject to
Or
matching the
style.
the door color. Another option may be muted gray.
Is that the door that doesn't open?
This goes to
I
the,
believe so, yes.
the door opens, and I'll explain that in a minute.
No, the front door
There
doesn't
are
open.
4 rough renderings, 2 from straight on, 2 from a side. One shows an A-framed awning, the other shows a shed-style awning.
Shed style would be better.
I only have 2, so obviously they've made
Missing
their
some?
determination.
What is the one they're showing? What is this one that they're showing? Shed style or,
I think it's an apron.
It's a shed. I think it's a shed.
Oh, no, I think you're right.
I think it's a shed.
I was thinking more of the ones down in East Milton, that don't have the side panels there. They're flatter and they don't have
Right.
the front panel on the side. It is not the best possible option for a canopy.
Amen.
well, are we going to approve it, or are we going to say?
I hate to send
well,
them
they
back,
can,
but
they can
boy.
actually, we can bifurcate this. We can decide the canopy is not, we're not there yet. So we'll just do the air conditioners and the generator, and the final bit, let's work on the canopy a little more.
Yeah, I think bifurcating it makes sense because I'm still not entirely convinced. I mean, I know they want the canopy for rain protection. I'm looking at the size of this canopy, as you pointed out, Bernie. I'm not sure it fits that. I'm not sure it's particularly,
There's a prevailing wind that comes
Right.
over the Gleason funeral parlor.
when they were first talking about doing a canopy, I was falsely, probably tired that night, assuming that they're actually going to build a structure, something that was more permanent.
Is a
than
canopy a
this.
structure?
This isn't.
The original one was a to-be-built canopy.
Yeah,
It would
okay,
have been
so I
part
wasn't
of the
completely
building.
wrong, yeah.
No, there's supposed to be a much bigger canopy over the entire porch in the original submittal.
Right.
This is the amended submittal, and it just doesn't look like it covers that porch at all.
I think it barely covers a person standing there.
The issue of the building itself, I actually did take back to the building commissioner. He did look at it, and the issue over there is one of, they did build what was on the original plans, but the issue is, there is if you get to the side, if you're over here, if you're in a wheelchair, this is how you get in. You get in on this side, and you go into a room, you get into the elevator to take you up to the next floor. When you pull forward, there's a small waiting room for the elevator. So you're inside
Is
waiting
it
for
open like that at the base?
That window is in the shaft.
The base is not even finished underneath the porch.
Right. It's not finished. But it's not finished.
The building's not finished yet.
Right.
I realize that, but
They have to put something there. What they're going to put there, I don't know, but that's not finished.
Can you show me what you were just showing them?
Yep.
So I can see what you're talking about. Okay, so,
You come in over there if you're in
Right.
a wheelchair.
So
you go
that
up and
was-
go in the side.
okay, and that's the window you were just talking
That
about.
window is in the elevator shaft.
Okay, gotcha. I think we bifurcate it.
Okay, and the final thing I say is, which will be 3, bifurcation will be 4. 3 will be the Canton Avenue facade of the building shall be recreated in all material, the Canton Avenue facade of the building shall recreate in all material detail the facade as it existed prior to its demolition. This requirement is part of the original site plan approval.
So we're just reiterating what we
Right,
had originally, okay, that's
exactly.
fine.
you have some pictures the way the old building looked like?
I think they submitted them in the original, yeah.
We don't have to attach those. They've got to do, it's in the original.
The
They've got to
assessors-
do
the assessors would have
we've
the
got to
picture
do
too.
what they originally agreed to do. And this is simply reinforcing that. So my suggestion is that I get this ready for right before our public forum, just for signing. Or maybe we could vote to approve it as we've discussed, and then we could just sign it.
Are you going to take out the language about the canopy?
It's going to be
completely?
bifurcating. It's going to simply say the issue of a canopy is left for another day.
I would just take it out of the decision.
No, because then they would just put it up.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. We could actually not approve the canopy.
what we're going to say is that it is left pending.
Okay, fair enough.
But with,
I don't know that it answers the question of their narrative letter. The proposed canopy will be made of canvas and the colors will be chosen to blend with the house. The canopy will be about 5 feet wide and will cover the landing area only. And I think your issue is it doesn't cover the landing area from the pictures submitted.
Right.
right, but that's going to be for another day because we don't really like the canopy that they submitted.
Well, in part because it's out of scale with the rest of the building. I mean, it's not even the rest of the building, it's out of scale with the entrance. If you look at that entrance and the canopy,
So what, we've actually already voted to approve this site plan subject to the written decision, and I think that we're going to just vote to say this will be, we've discussed the contents of the written decision, and all we have to do now is sign it.
okay.
So I'm not even, well, let's do that. Let's have a motion to, that the written decision incorporate these comments and that it be signed next week, right before the forum.
Sounds good.
But I'd love to know what the canopy is going to look like.
The canopy, we're holding off. We're not doing the canopy. We're saying
That
that
in the motion?
canopy is left for another day
Okay. Or the-
Only in legal language.
in legal language, right.
Did you make it that there's the proposed building, that isn't necessarily what's out there right now,
Right.
but you are addressing the,
Well, all I'm saying,
Factors.
I mean, what they wanted to do was recreate, or they were going to fix up the Canton Avenue facade initially, and then they tore it down. And so we're simply saying the Canton Avenue facade shall be recreated in all material detail as the facade, or shall recreate in all material detail the facade as it existed prior to its demolition.
which is the picture that they submitted with their application.
Well, they showed the old building?
No, but they showed that as their proposed building.
It looks like the old building,
Right, that's not what's out there now.
obviously.
All right. Well, I mean, shall,
I like
is
your
that
language.
is that the picture we want them to,
That's the one that they submitted. We didn't come up with that, they did.
is that what we want?
Is this what Mr. Lovely,
Let's just say as it existed, and we say this requirement is part of the original site
Right.
plan approval,
So they
and
can
so
go
they're
back to
going to
the
have to go back to the original site plan approval. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Do we have that motion?
I move that we approve the site plan changes as discussed this evening, subject to signing next week, review and signing next week.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Apparently not.
Do we have a second?
the chairman seconded?
I second it. All right. Any discussion?
I would like to know why we're not getting a second. Is it the canopy? Is it something else?
Verbiage, and
Okay. So then maybe we should have it typed up and then review it in
Oh.
typed form?
I'd like to see a picture of the way it looked before they tore it down.
Okay.
Because this is what we had voted initially, it's,
Right. Well, I think that, so let's withdraw that motion.
I'm happy to withdraw.
And
So if we can
we've
get that
we've
typed up
made,
for next week.
we've made progress.
Yes.
And we'll have a typed thing, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe if we could get it as a package with all the relevant attachments, that make it easier for us to see.
That would be good.
Okay.
You have that picture, Bill, over across the hall, do you have that picture of the original application?
Chasing it now.
Or is it across the hall, too?
All right.
All right.
Right.
We don't have to do anything on this one.
That's what we usually do.
Now,
Master plan, you've got next on your
master
agenda.
plan.
All right, so With your permission, I will just do a quick update. You all received the draft documents last week for your review. Again, if you have any comments for the planning consultants, please get them to Bill and he will forward them. I have been working with them. They've already received some comments from the Master Plan Committee. They've received some comments from me on the draft vision. They have actually submitted, I think it came through yesterday, a second draft vision and goals statement, which I'll be discussing with them probably tomorrow. So there's still time to get in comments on the draft report. Obviously, next week, 7 o'clock, or a week from today, the 25th, 7 o'clock at the high school auditorium is the final visioning forum. We'll be discussing the vision and goals. We'll be testing out a few more ideas. And after that, they will be working on the final report. I believe we will all get a chance to review a second draft before it becomes final, so you'll be able to comment on that. And of course, at town meeting, we will be going forward to ask for the funding for the second phase. And that's my report.
Well, that's a very concise report. Any questions about the master plan? It was seeming to me, speaking of master planning and medical marijuana, that the citing, if the master plan committee gets set up, they're going to be involved in the medical marijuana situation.
We actually talked about it briefly at our last meeting as part of an overall discussion of planning in the town, in that obviously with assuming that both the moratorium and the funding for the second phase pass, it would be in some ways ideal to wrap in the discussion and the land use planning for the medical marijuana to the overall land use planning for the town. A couple of other land use planning items that came up that the master plan committee, if it's able to go forward, would want to make sure is coordinated is the discussion of the firehouses and what the planning is going on for that. And of course, the housing production plan that the Board of Selectmen are going forward with and that we as a board will have a role in. We discussed the fact that that planning discussion needs to be coordinated with the other planning discussions. So there's a lot going on in the town of Milton at the moment. But I can certainly, I mean, we won't have a meeting as a master plan committee until after town meeting. And once we've had that, we'll know as a board and then as a master plan committee what our remit is going forward.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of points of contact. I mean, the DPW, for instance, is going to be probably an important resource.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now, we're going to go on to our 40B projects, our discussion of 40B projects, 40B being the comprehensive permit law. And we've got a couple out there, Milton Muse and Hendry's. Hendry's is also known as 131 Elliott Street. And as I reported last time, we're making some progress on seeing if we can't resolve the issues that stood in the way of a special permit last time. And we met with neighborhood representatives last Sunday, we being neighborhood representatives, me, Senator Joyce, and
is that a second meeting from the original? Well, that's the same meeting as you had.
that was a second meeting.
It was a second meeting,
It was
okay.
a meeting
Good.
with neighborhood representatives to
Okay, so-
discuss what might transpire. Yes.
I received a phone call, Al, from a lady who said that she and some other people find this way of going about things to be not in the best interests of the town. In fact, that this stuff is supposed to be done cable TV in open session. Now it's going behind closed doors, so
They're not closed doors, but they're not public meetings on TV because TV often is a constraining influence to getting things done. The other thing is that this is not anything that the board is wed to. This would be a proposal that if it gets put together would be brought to the board, and the board could ask the tough questions then. It simply is like any planning process. You do the planning, and then when you have a plan, you bring it to the board. I understand how they say, well, why don't you do it as a board on TV? And for one thing, it would take quite a long time, and I don't think it would be very productive. As you may recall, some of the TV hearings that we had went on a significant amount of time and didn't accomplish very much.
I think also we have a precedent in that we have previously asked developers who have been considering projects in front of the board, or even who have projects in front of the board, to go and work with the neighbors before coming back for us. A case in point is 36 to 50 Elliott Street, which we just did our site plan approval for, in which it was in front of the ZBA. They actually spent about 2 years going to neighborhood meetings before they even brought it to the ZBA and to us. And I think that's not a bad precedent for this project. Not that we want it to be another 2 years, but for them to have discussions with the neighborhood as to what they would like to see before they file another formal application with us. I think a lot of the questions that had arisen during our meetings could get ironed out before it comes back to us again, and that would be helpful for all. But I agree with you, Ed, in that eventually it needs to be a public process, and it needs to go through these standard public process channels in
I'm
front of us.
reporting what the lady on the phone said.
I understand, yeah.
I have to sympathize with her, though. I don't think
Yeah.
it's the right way to go about things.
Well, we've asked in the past for developers to talk to neighbors first. So we
But-
did it with 17 Central, 36 to 50 did it on their own.
Some people are meeting, might be fine gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, but some people are meeting unbeknownst to the rest of the board. This board, but I don't know anything about this.
Well, you've reported back to us.
Well,
Beforehand.
this is
Well, beforehand is fair enough.
This
You
is
should let
right,
us know
but what I'm
beforehand, yeah.
doing, what I'm doing is
agree.
not as a representative of the planning board. I'm not saying this is what the board's
You're a
going to do.
facilitator. You're facilitating.
I'm something of a facilitator.
Well, I would say that by virtue of the fact that you're chairman, you are a representative of the planning board,
Well,
but I don't
I
have.
am, but I'm
I
not.
don't have an
I'm not
issue with the
functioning as
Right.
representative.
You're not saying this is what the board's thinking, and you're not making
And
promises on our behalf.
I certainly don't make any commitments for the board. What I want to do is try and find something that is, would be reasonable for the developer, for the neighbors, and, hopefully, if we can find something that's both of those things, it would be agreeable to the board. But that would be for the board, and that's something for another day, because we're still working on
One question, Mr. Chairman. Were the Conleys there at the second meeting?
no.
Was there a reason they weren't there at the second meeting?
I
What was the purpose?
I think there was, because it was a neighborhood meeting to discuss what went on at the first meeting.
Okay. I agree with Ed, we should know beforehand, just that the meetings are taking place, so we can keep, we're not going to be there because we're not posted for that. I think having one representative, I don't have a problem with a member of the planning board being a representative to something like this, and especially a chair in something that's been this important. As you say, you're not making any representations on our behalf or any promises, and I think that's fine. But we should know that these things are happening and what the role is.
I'm
So.
going to meet with the Conleys,
Okay, good.
and I think it would be probably the cast of characters from the first
Okay.
meeting.
So you, Tom, Senator Joyce,
Peter
Peter
Mullen.
Mullen, Cheryl Tagayas,
Right,
and the Connollys. Okay.
and the Conleys, next Sunday.
Did anything come out of these meetings that was different than the 2 years of meetings that we had?
Well, the proposal, as you recall, was to move the building,
Step it,
create,
yeah.
no, well, just move the whole building back.
So not a step, move the building back, yeah.
In place of a step back of the top floor, step back the whole building. More green space along Central Avenue, more business parking on Central
Did the
Avenue.
Conleys do any frowning or anything? Could you read their poker faces?
They
Doesn't sound like what they have
They were
proposed.
interested.
They're
They were
interested.
interested, and we're working with them. And you know, with any luck, we'll come up with a proposal that is satisfactory to most everyone. Some of the neighbors were adamant that they might take a chance on the 40B development, but others thought that maybe a revised special permit proposal would be the best
They gonna
thing for the neighborhood.
bring back new plans? Did they
That
agree to
would
do
be,
that?
there would, obviously, if it came to the board, there'd be new plans. But we don't have a proposal before the board yet.
So
But
they would have to make a proposal?
there would have,
Have they made a proposal?
there is no formal proposal.
Okay.
So it's all very conceptual at the moment.
It's conceptual, yes. All right, but I do think that we should, once again, defer the detailed analysis of the 40B proposal, because we don't have a deadline, do we yet, Bill?
No, we do not.
Okay, so
And
we're,
then, sorry, Alex. The Milton Muse, the deadline is in June, so we should probably schedule time.
we're working on the site walk,
That's right.
are we not, Bill?
We are, and there, the person I have to deal with is on vacation this week. He'll be back Saturday or Sunday. So I'll talk to him Monday or Tuesday.
You mentioned the 27th. That's going to be problematic for me. So Preservation Rhode Island is having their annual conference in a town that I worked in, and I'm leading a tour for it.
What town was that?
Great.
West Warwick, Rhode Island. I worked on their redevelopment
nice.
plan.
That would be the
So-
first Saturday, which is why I said that, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure that,
Well,
Mr. Hewitt has
a
that
May
date.
Saturday would be
Nice.
nice also.
okay?
And what's the site walk accomplish? I'm just curious.
Well, the site walk is, I think that we would get an idea of just where the wetlands are, where the foul meadow is with relation to the wetlands, and exactly where they're going to put all this building that they're proposing and all the pavement. And that would be worthwhile. We do have the lawyer for the project here. Maybe she can give us.
In the meantime, to go back to your question, the planning board has no adjudicatory role in this. All they're doing is looking, they don't have it, they're not in the process of it. You're making a comment back at this point to the selectmen or to the Mass Housing Partnership, Finance Agency for this one.
It'd be good before the leaves come out, once the forest grows in, you're not really
I
going to be able
suppose
to...
that's a good point. Maybe we could do it of an evening.
I will ask Mr. Hewitt.
Mosquitoes are out, aren't they, Alex?
Not
Have they
yet.
started the spraying yet?
I
We definitely
found-
do it before the mosquitoes.
I mean, come on, I don't want to
I'm
get...
not out there yet.
I discovered a tick on my dog, so they're
There's a lot of those. I've been out several different sites, and there's loads of ticks.
I get a dog, too.
to wake up early in the spring. All right. what else about either of these? Milton views, I think that actually covers, sorry, Marion, I think that about covers what we're going to do tonight, unless you have something you'd like to contribute.
I don't really have anything new. I probably don't know any more than you do, because the two principal figures, Rob Hewitt and Deborah Horowitz, I think are both away on vacation. I wouldn't imagine that they would not be willing to do a sidewalk with the planning board, but the timing of it, I feel was as much as I would as to what might work.
Well, all right, now, do we have any, oh, we have the town planner's report. How could I forget?
I forgot it. I forgot it. I've been coordinating the effort for both of these 40B. What else? Dealing with land use for several different projects. There's a couple of tear downs around town, looking at individual sites that people keep coming in the door. It must be building season. That's it. I was just here last week.
Couple of tear downs.
Lots of those around. Trying to work with Mr. Rankin to get the Brush Hill Road project moving. And putting together a PowerPoint for the upcoming town meeting.
Busy.
Busy.
Yeah.
What about your assistant? How's that coming?
Who's that?
Well, doesn't everyone want you to have an assistant so you can?
So they say. I don't know.
We'll have to wait
I
till
really
after
don't.
town meeting to look at that. So it won't happen before then, because we're on an off-budget cycle.
All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.